Hello, my friends. Today, Trump once again asked what concessions Russia would make if sanctions against them were to be lifted while the occupied territory remains under their control. And Trump responded that Ukraine could forget about joining NATO.
The big question I had is, does he want to take the whole thing? But the reason, and the Ukrainians are good fighters, I have to say, but without the equipment, without our equipment, we have the best equipment in the world. We have the best military equipment in the world. Without our equipment, that would have been over very quickly.
What concessions would you like to see? What concessions would you like to see?
Oh, I don't want to tell right now, but I can tell you that NATO you can forget about. I think that's probably the reason the whole thing started. And I think, JD, we can say that.
At the same time, he added that Zelensky would visit the US on Friday and sign documents.
Make a deal. Most importantly, by far, we're going to make a deal with Russia and Ukraine to stop killing people. They'll stop killing young Russian soldiers and young Ukrainian soldiers and other people in addition in the towns and cities. And we will consider that a very important thing and a big accomplishment because it was going nowhere until this administration came in. They hadn't spoken to President Putin in 2 years. And so we'll keep you advised. Before we begin the cabinet, I'd like to have Scott and
Interesting. Does he know that just yesterday Zelensky stated that Ukraine owes nothing to the US? Things are unfolding in a rather strange way. And Trump's son made an even harsher statement about Ukraine. But they forget that Ukraine is not the country everyone is betting on. It's just ridiculous. I can't imagine anyone in their right mind choosing Ukraine as an ally when Russia is an option. Think about it, a massive nuclear power with tons of natural resources. Everyone needs the biggest country in the world, literally. And then there is Ukraine with Chernobyl and radioactive dogs. And the Biden administration is like, oh, this is definitely the ally we need. Let's pour all our money into them. Honestly, the US should be sending weapons to Russia instead. Friends, I don't even know how to comment on this, but clearly, because the statement was so extreme, after it surfaced, Donald Trump Jr.'s press secretary claimed that it was a fake generated by artificial intelligence. Whether to believe it or not is up to you, but I'm sure you'll share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's move on to the situation on the front line, starting with the Donetsk direction, where Ukrainian forces have managed to push the Russians back significantly and have practically broken through to the center of Donetsk. This is very good news on a larger scale. The fact that the Russians are not advancing past Donetsk but are instead being pushed back by Ukrainian forces shows that they cannot reach the Klemenbyk reservoir or Kostantinivka, which was their primary objective, one that Ukraine has successfully thwarted. And despite continued Russian attacks, they have achieved no success. In the Pokrovsk direction, Drapati has also managed to thwart Russian plans. With a successful counteroffensive, they cut the front line near Kotline, preventing the Russians from advancing the encirclement efforts around Pokrovsk. Additionally, Ukrainian forces recently carried out successful counterattacks in the Peshchane area, where Russian troops still haven't been able to regain their lost positions. Now, we're waiting to see whether Ukrainian forces will conduct counterattacks near the village of Shevchenko to eliminate this bulge, as Russian troops periodically attempt to break through towards the outskirts of Pokrovsk from that position. We'll see. Meanwhile, the Russians continue the assaults on the villages of Promyn and Tarasivka, but so far they have made no progress and the situation remains under Ukrainian control. However, it's important to note that Russian drones are still operating actively and the situation with Shalin remains difficult. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians have managed to capture Ulakli, and fighting is now taking place for Konstantinopel. Ukrainian forces are reporting concerning details about the situation. Some of our units are still partially holding out in Ulakli, 10 days under partial encirclement and siege. It seems that the commander of the operational tactical group Donetsk, Tarnavsky, is now repeating his own mistake from December 2023, January 2024, with the Zenit position near Avdiivka. Now Tarnavsky is being considered for a command role in one of the newly forming corps. And you see, for the counterattacks near Pokrovsk, you want to give Tarnavsky credit. He was involved in that. But for the failure in managing the southern part of the Donetsk responsibility zone, there are no polite words. Well, I don't even know anymore. Let's keep conclusions, just stating the facts. In the north of the Donetsk OTG, things are improving. In the south, it's a disaster. In the area of Velika Novosilka, the situation is also deteriorating. Russian forces are actively advancing along the river and have already captured the village of Skudne, reaching the outskirts of Dniproenergia. Ukrainian forces report that fighting is ongoing and stabilization measures are being carried out. Attacks continue on the villages of Burlatske and Novopil is under shelling. Clearly, Russian activity in this sector remains high and they appear to plan in further advances. In the Zaporizhia direction, the Russians are assaulting Novoandriivka and Mali-Sherbaki, while also continuing attacks on Kamensk and shelling positions along the front line. However, there have been no significant changes here, and over the past 24 hours, the front line has remained unchanged. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces continue shelling the right bank and attempting to push onto the islands near Antonivka. However, all the attacks have been repelled by Ukrainian forces so far, and the front line remains unchanged. Now, moving on to Chasiv Yar. Fighting continues in the central part of the city, while Russian forces are intensifying shelling on Konstantinivka, Kramatorsk, and Slovyansk. However, there have been no changes on the front line in the past 24 hours. In the Siversk direction, battles continue for Bilohorivka, Verkhnyo-Kamensk, and near Ivanodarivka. The Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed the loss of Bilohorivka, though geolocation maps suggest changes in control. According to these resources, Russian forces have indeed captured the area. However, this assessment is based solely on reports from Russian military correspondents, with no video or photographic evidence to confirm their presence. So for now, we're waiting for concrete proof. In the Liman direction, Russian forces are assaulting Novolyubivka, Zelena Dolina, Yampolivka, and Zarichne. There have been no territorial changes in the past 24 hours, but Russian activity remains high, keeping the situation tense. In the Borova direction, Russian forces are assaulting Bohuslavka and attempting to break through from Raihorodka. However, there is no activity further south, and the front line has remained unchanged for the past 24 hours. In the Kupiansk direction, battles continue for Petropavlivka, but no territorial changes have been reported. Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks. In the Dvorichna area, Russian troops are still trying to expand their control around the town, but so far they haven't made any progress and fighting is ongoing. In the Kharkiv direction, shelling continues without any offensive actions and direct clashes are taking place only in Vovchansk. However, Ukrainian forces have the upper hand there, successfully repelling all attacks. In the Kursk direction, Russian forces have made significant advances while a full takeover of the area is still far off, their progress is substantial, making defense more difficult. The entire region is now heavily targeted by artillery fire, and Russian attacks continue from multiple directions. As of yesterday, it has been confirmed that Russian forces regained control over three settlements and a large number of surrounding fields. We will have to wait and see how the situation develops. Meanwhile, the Russians are actively using horses for transportation in their frontline zone.
Не пугай лошадок. Я не пугаю лошадок.
Meanwhile, First Lady Zelensky commented on the election situation.
Your husband said that to achieve peace, he is ready to step down once Ukraine joins NATO. Would you support such a decision by your husband? Can I ask you this question at the end?
He hasn't discussed this with me. As far as I understand, this was a statement he made yesterday during a special press conference for Ukrainian journalists. And not just them, I know that he has no intention or desire to be president for life. His main goal, the one he has set for himself, is to ensure Ukraine's security. And whatever those security guarantees may be, they must be in place for him to be able to peacefully leave his position. If NATO membership is a guarantee of security and he feels confident in our safety, I think he could do that. Why not?
Friends, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. At the same time, Russians continue to mock Putin for bowing to Trump. They dug up a statement he made in 2023 where he said, Russian President Vladimir Putin declared that the West seeks to dismantle Russia, break it into pieces, and exploit its resources. Putin noted that Russia has the largest territory in the world and a relatively large population compared to other European countries. According to him, the West believed that Russia, in its current form, was unnecessary. But in 2025, Putin is singing a completely different tune.
We could, together with American companies, consider working jointly in this direction. For example, in the Krasnoyarsk region, even back in Soviet times, there were plans to build a new hydroelectric power station and create additional aluminum production facilities. After all, aluminum is primarily about energy, and preferably cheap energy. Hydropower is cheap, and besides that, it's also environmentally friendly. So, there was already such a plan dating back to the Soviet era. Of course, it's a capital-intensive, investment-heavy project. According to preliminary estimates, it cost, or in today's scenario, would cost somewhere around $15 billion. We can consider this. That's politics for you.
In short, the circus continues. And that's all from me. So, please, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.